We're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Columbia Heights Public Schools Independent School District Number 13 School Board meeting for Tuesday, April 10th, 2018. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask everyone if you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome again. Hall, if you would please, roll call.
Lewis. Here. Larkin.
Here.
Severson.
Here.
Mueller.
Here.
Palmer.
Here.
A Samurai. Here. Superintendent Kelly.
Here.
I'm so sorry.
That's it. All right, I'd like to take a moment to read our mission statement. Columbia Heights Public Schools create worlds of opportunity for every learner in partnership with supportive small-town communities by challenging all to discover their talents, unleash their potential, and develop tools for lifelong success. Our core values are community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. Next up would be the approval of the agenda, adjustments, announcements, and correspondence. Start with approval of the agenda. If I could get a motion to move that forward, please.
So moved. Second.
Maddie was Howard. Thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Announcements. April 17th, at 5 p.m., there'll be a school board listening session. Where's Laura? That's you and me, by the way. Okay. Also on April 17th at 5:30, there will be a strategic roadmap community conversations here in the community room. April 24th, 7 p.m., regular school board meeting. May 8th at 5 p.m., there'll be a school board subcommittee on policy. Also on May 8th at 7 p.m., there'll be a regular school board meeting. Under the announcements, I'd like to just remind everyone that the public is invited to participate, and I mentioned one of them, but one of two strategic roadmap community conversations. They're going to run from 5:30 to 8:30. The first one is tomorrow, April 11th. It'll be at the High School Media Center. And then the second one, as I mentioned, 5:30 to 8:30 on the 17th. And that'll be here in the community room. Conversations are going to focus on the question, what do we hope for the daily experience of students, families, and staff in Columbia Heights Public Schools? The purpose of the conversations be led by an external facilitator, and is to request input that could be incorporated into a revised district strategic roadmap. Next up would be correspondence. Superintendent Kelly, any correspondence?
Mr. Chair and members, there's no correspondence at this time.
Okay, thank you. Next would be communication to the board. At this time, citizen and employee representatives may briefly address the school board. The board will listen to brief remarks, ask clarifying questions, and if desired, request that the administration follow up. The board will not take action at this meeting on requests presented at this time. Thank you, everybody, that spoke tonight. Next up would be the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the March 13th board meeting and the March 20th work session, the personnel report, and the treasurer's report for February 2018. If I can get a motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Laura?
Second.
Molly, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Discussion reports and information items. First up is reports from member of the board. Board members will report on board activities since the last regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education. Laura, would you mind going first tonight?
Absolutely, but I will.
Okay.
It's been a while since we've had a regular board meeting, so figuring out all the activities is a bit challenging for me this evening, so I do apologize. I did attend the strategic planning session, as well as I believe I had a couple of concerts. There was the concert over at the high school with all the bands, which was very well done. They kept us very busy and entertained for the whole evening. That was very nice. And I believe I also attended a choir concert also over at the high school. And then I had the wonderful opportunity to represent Columbia Heights at the National School Board Association Conference. And there's a lot of material that I would like to bring forward. Perhaps, I think it's going to be it's a little bit more in-depth than I think we have time for this evening with respect to our guests that are here this evening. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that and move on.
Okay, thanks. Paula?
Before this meeting, we had a special called meeting, and, excuse me, and then I also communicated with members of the community and constituents as well.
Okay, thank you. Molly?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to attend Girls' Night at Highland, which was a really great opportunity for the kids in the district. They do host other students from North Park and Valley View as well. It was a really good turnout as well. A lot of energy around the state tournament for our varsity boys basketball team. So I was able to attend a couple of pep fests as well as all of the games. And I'd just like to congratulate the coaches and players on a really good run this year. They did great. Also attended 2 work sessions over the last few weeks and the strategic planning session meeting that we had last week. Yes. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, there was the work session.
Mary?
The work
Yeah.
session.
Just like Molly, I was able to attend the basketball games, and it was a lot of fun to see the kids out there and the students in the stands, and even the staff, and the level of excitement from the crowd. And that was really, really fun to witness. Congrats to them. We've had a couple of work sessions since we last met. The strategic planning session, also a couple of chair meetings, and then also discussions with community members.
Okay. Lauren?
Great, thank you. I think by the time you get to the end, we just repeat some things, but did have the opportunity to attend the band and choir concerts at the high school and also attended 2 of the boys' basketball games on their state run. Like Molly said, congratulations to a great second place finish. Also attended the work studies, the strategic planning session for the board, the Valley View PTO meeting, and they've got a lot of great things coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I know that there's some activities and Facebook posts on those. I have had several community member conversations, and like Laura, had the time at the National School Board Association Annual Conference, so lots of great information there to bring back, and lots of extended time with Member Palmer and Superintendent Kelly, so lots of great conversations there.
Okay, thank you. I also attended the strategic planning meeting last week, chair meeting prior to this. We had a work session and then the closed session tonight before this. I attend the North Park had their Fine Arts Festival last week. I was able to show up for that. I watched the basketball game remotely. It's no less exciting, actually it probably was, than being in the stands, but I'm very proud of the kids and their success. And I wasn't representing the school board necessarily, but last night at the city council meeting, they recognized 3 of our students who were, it was March 3rd, I want to say. We had a fairly significant house fire in town. It's the one that, as a firefighter, you never want to have. It's the person trapped, flames through the roof and everything. And honestly, the only thing I knew that these kids had done and helped out early on with us is there's the feeder hose, which hooks up to the fire hydrant. It's big and it's heavy, and it's horrible to have to drag when there's even no water in it. But in this particular instance, where our truck was versus the hydrant was probably 500 yards away, and we had 2 people trying to drag that feeder down there, and without even a moment's hesitation, one of the young men grabbed that fire hose and was helping drag it down the street with our firefighters with so much enthusiasm that the operator at the truck actually had to tug at one point, say, stop, you're pulling it away from my truck now. So, but what I also came to find out after the fact is that prior to our arrival, they witnessed the fire, they saw the smoke, and they had heard that they thought that someone was inside, and they actually attempted to get into the house to try and save this person. They set up a ladder outside by a bedroom window where they believed that she might be. We're hollering directions to her to try and get her to come their way, and the fire pushed them back. After that, they were, again, we're always very short-staffed early on, but in the process of working to put the fire out, there had been a mother and a little baby that had been in that house and came out. It was a cold day, and they actually found a blanket for her and covered her up and took care of her. So some very heroic actions by kids in our district here. Was very proud of them, and they got recognized last night. They received, the police department has a citizen award, and they were recognized last night for that. So I did not want that to go unnoticed, that our kids are good in school, but they're amazing outside of school as well. So they did some things that they did not even have to consider doing, and quite frankly, put themselves at more than just a bit of a risk to try and save someone. Good news is, we did get her out, and she survived, or she's still alive. She's still in critical condition, but the role that they played, probably as much with getting that hose down the street, hooked up to a hydrant to allow us to put the amount of water we needed to on the fire, because as big as it was, they were critical in that piece as well as probably her being alive right now. So not a school board activity per se, but something that I was witness to last night and wanted to make sure I talked about it. So that concludes my report. Next would be Superintendent. Do you have a report?
Chair Larkin, yes, I do, but I don't know if I can
course you
follow
do.
that. Thank you for that wonderful update on our students, and I'll try to be brief. I, too, attended the 2018 State Boys Basketball Tournament and wanted to congratulate the team and the coaches. I also wanted to thank all the fans who came out to support the team. The place was packed, and it was really great to see everybody. And there were a lot of staff who organized pre, post, and during tournament activities, and I want to thank them, and a special thanks to Principal Robleski and Activities Director Antoine Harris, and to Activities Manager Jake Henderson. They had a big job, and they executed it well, so I just wanted to give them a shout out. I want to thank the board here at the table, too, for their ongoing support for K-12 activity funding, because without the support from the board, we wouldn't have those teams, and those kids wouldn't have those experiences. So thanks, each and every one of you as well. Principal Robleski and I had coffee and conversations with Anoka County District Attorney Tony Palumbo. We had some issues to talk with him and get some in-service on some topics, and he was very gracious to give of his time. So I want to thank Mr. Palumbo for meeting with us. And I attended multiple strategic planning meetings with Teamworks and the school boards, and with administration learning how to facilitate some of the strategic planning things that are coming up. The director of HR and I met with local union president Daniel Honigs from 710 on our monthly meetings to discuss issues. I did attend the NSBA Leadership Conference, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that at a later meeting. It was a great deal of extraordinary learning, I thought, on my part, and I really enjoyed getting to know board members better. As well. And then I attended the school board work study and the strategic planning sessions and the closed session, and I've had contact with many of you around the table, so I want to thank you for your time. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up would be our legislative update, and we are fortunate enough tonight to have Senator Lane, Representative Kunish Podine, am I saying that right? Yeah?
Wow.
And then Representative Bernardi, and we're going to let you guys have the floor.
Well, thank you,
Thanks for coming.
Chair Larkin and Superintendent Kelly and the board members for having us here. And because of the three of us, Mary is the one that sits on a policy education committee. I'll let her start first.
Good evening, Chair Larkin and Superintendent Kelly and all of the school board. Well, thank you for having me here. This is my first time visiting all of you, so I'm really happy to be here. A little bit about me. I'm also a teacher. I'm an educator. I've been teaching for over 20 years. I started as a sixth grade teacher in North Minneapolis until they started closing the schools, and then jumped over to Robbinsdale, where I've been a library media specialist for the past 17, 18 years. And currently I'm at the Robbinsdale Middle School as their library media specialist, and take a leave when I'm in session. So it's worked out very well for me. Happy to be here. I do sit on the Education Policy Board in the House, and we've had lots of lively discussions. A couple of the the bills that I'll just kind of go over. If this had been tomorrow night, I could give you an idea of what Chair Erickson has in her omnibus bill, but that isn't going to be disclosed till tomorrow, so I can't give you a very clear picture of that just yet. One of the things that we had a very lively discussion about was the 5-star rating for schools, and I don't know if you've heard a little bit about that, but the idea behind that was to create a rating system that parents could go to see how the schools in their area or schools that they might want to choose to send their students to rate compared to other schools. And there would be a 5-star rating, and it would be based 100% on the MCA tests. And as having been a testing coordinator for 10 years in my school district, I realized how I immediately knew that that was not the best way to rate the school, that there's a lot of other things that go into identifying the strengths and the weaknesses of different schools in different districts. And I gave them some ideas about what I thought that rating system should look like. So we'll see how it comes out at the end. I think the suggestions or the incompatibility of that plan to just use the MCA plan was a little bit clearer once I was able to give them a little idea of what a real testing cycle looks like. Most of them had never seen the test or had been in a testing situation with students, and there's a lot of stress all the way around. So I hope that that isn't included in the omnibus bill and that we have more discussion around that. One of the first things that we talked about was a bill. It is the bill, let's see. I don't have it listed here, but one bill that I was able to work through the legislature is called Jake's bill, and it is a bill to incorporate curriculum around opioid and addictive abuse curriculum. And the really great thing about this one is that there is a foundation that is working to create that curriculum, and they would be the ones that would come in and actually facilitate the curriculum if the school wanted to. So last year, a woman came to me and told me her very sad story about losing her son to opioid overdose, and she and her family members created a foundation. It's called For Jake's Sake. And with the funds that they had been gathering from this foundation, they started working on a curriculum and have been working with MDE around that. And their hope is to go into schools and, as I said, facilitate so that schools don't have to worry about finding a curriculum, incorporating a curriculum, paying somebody extra to do that sort of thing. And the first 2 years would be a pilot year for that program, and they will be contacting different schools to see if they'd be interested in that. Otherwise, they would make the curriculum available for FIAD teachers, social studies, health teachers to use as they wish. Another bill that we have been that has had strong bipartisan support is one around sexual exploitation and human trafficking. There's a group of young women from a school in one of the southern suburbs, and they created a group called Girls United, and they put together a bill along with Representative Jessup that would also do some curriculum and introduce and discuss what sexual exploitation and sexual abuse and sexual trafficking would look like in the high schools. And that did not have a curriculum connected to it, but that has been a real popular one with the committee. There's also one about House File 4119 is a bill that would require some training for teachers to recognize dyslexia in students. And I know that as a teacher myself, a library media specialist, in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of attention to trying to identify it. Not that we would be the one that would diagnose it or do any of the actual testing, but just to have an awareness and then pass that on as a recommendation if we saw a student that might have dyslexic tendencies. There's also a bill that would require cultural competency for teachers. Another one that would set teacher contract deadlines, and that would look at the January 15th, much like it used to be when you used to have to settle the teachers' contracts by a certain date. Otherwise, there would be penalties that might show up again. And I'll let the rest of them give their little brief overview, but I feel like the education package that the governor has presented looks really good and fair to me. He's really investing in that early childhood, and I know that that this district has done an incredible job of doing that, putting that in place for our youngest learners so that they have that opportunity to start off with a really good base before they're moving on into the elementary schools. And I will leave more for my pals here to explain, but if you have any questions for me, I'm open for questions.
All right, coming from the Senate angle, I know that one of the key concerns of this board and many is the special education cross-subsidy. And so I was trying to find out what had been done and what the thought was on that. You know, that $700 million across the state is owed, and even eliminating a portion of that would be a good thing for the services you need to provide. So Senator Wigger, who is a Democrat, did put forth the AMSD's proposal that would pay 10% of the state's cross-subsidy, which is $228 million. It has not received a hearing. And the governor's supplemental budget proposal includes $16.9 million for fiscal year 19 and $43 million for 2021 as additional for special ed, but it has not been taken seriously either. A bill is included in the Senate Education Policy Omnibus Bill to create an education working group. We love to do groups if we don't want to do something. The group of 12 legislators are to consult with the stakeholders to study education delivery and costs, strategies to reduce the need for special ed services, relevant state laws, et cetera, and come up with a 10-year plan to reduce costs. So that appears to be the angle that is being taken at this time. Moving to school safety, although some of us have some, a package of bills around gun legislation as well as enhancing schools' resources, the education committees are focused on the school safety, and in the bills that have been included for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill include increasing the Safe Schools levy and allowing room for facility enhancements, counselors, peace officers, drug abuse, cybersecurity, and interior classroom security enhancements. That is the only one that has actually been heard in the House also. These others have been included in the Senate, but I'm not sure that they've had any hearing in the House. That would be a funded new school facilities improvement program, permission to use your long-term facilities maintenance funding for upgrade and safety and security of school facilities, and appropriation to the Cognito group for staff to be trained in suicide prevention training. So that's how that stands at this point. Now, I did understand that in the Senate, the education policy bill has been moved as of March 29th, and it's a very small bill. It says Pupil Fair Dismissal Act changes, which is just clarifying how student and parental notification for expulsion, suspension, et cetera. And then it has the star rating system, which is definitely controversial, sets up that state rating system based on statewide rather than district assessments. It's not very sophisticated, as Mary said, it's just the scores, and it could be a poor thing for schools' reputations. It also strikes the value-added growth model, which we worked very hard to get in there in the past. So I would also like to mention disaggregated data. I'm on the Council of Asian Pacific Minnesotans, and this has become a bit of a noisy thing in that council. And next year, this bill was passed in 2016 to the All Kids Count Act, and says that instead of just aggregating a population as a whole, we need to disaggregate the data to find out what the subgroups are actually doing. And it's especially prominent with Asian populations, because there's a couple Asian population cultures that are actually doing very well. So that when you take the average Asian achievement, you do at least as good, in fact, better than the white population. But when you disaggregate it down to the subgroups, you find some particular ethnicities within that, like the Hmong, that are not doing as well. And the only way to identify where your resources need to go, you need to disaggregate the data. So that's what this bill is, to disaggregate the data by the school districts, by having parents check off the boxes to the cultural, the ethnicity. And Minnesota, this is a nationwide movement. Minnesota has also added other groups to this, so that we have 3 Native subgroups, 7 Hispanic Latino subgroups, 5 Black and African heritage subgroups, as well as the 7 Asian Pacific Islander group. So, and there's also the data for English learners, home languages, free and reduced price lunches, and foster care, so that we can start to see how these things play into the achievement gap. It's optional for a parent to check off the child subgroup, and all the individual data is non-public data according to Minnesota state law. Only the summary data is used, and it's only at the school district and MDE levels. The program begins for across the state in the school year 2019-20. It's being piloted this year in 5 groups. I speak of the Council of Asian Pacific Minnesotans because our new Chinese member of that group is up in arms about this bill. And she wants it to be killed, but what we're saying to her is this council has supported it for 7 years and moved for it. So you may hear some noise about some people thinking that it's an ethnic registry, and it has nothing to do with a registry of who we would intern, like we did the Japanese in World War II, or how the Nazi Germany might move against the Jews. I think it's very big hype, because they're trying to kill this bill because they're doing very well and they don't want to disaggregate the data further down. They think, my understanding, as I've been told by some of them, it would impact their admission to colleges. It has nothing to do with that, but that's what they fear, that it would bring back affirmative action and they might have to share some slots. But it is going to make noise about ethnic registries, and please understand that it has nothing to do with that. And then I will move on to Connie, but I just leave it to you to look at the anti-groping bill that passed through, that was a Columbia Heights mother who experienced some buttocks groping at Lifetime Fitness. And we have now found out that the state law exempted that, and now we have changed that, and we're moving that to the House, in the House and Senate, to the floors, so that we can straighten out that bill.
Okay, well, my colleagues covered a lot, so hopefully I'll move through this quickly, but, putting that at a microphone of a politician, that oftentimes doesn't happen. So, but anyway, I don't know if you all know this, but my childhood home was in Columbia Heights, and I represent 5 school districts, and Columbia Heights is one of them, and I'm so proud of all the things you do here. Your basketball team was amazing. My husband and I enjoyed watching the games, and we were really disappointed with them not getting the championship, but what an accomplishment, getting second in the state. What a memory forever. So that was awesome. And then the wrestlers did really well, I understand. And then the AP honors students. He had a number of those this year. You ought to be very proud of that. And their families and the students. And then also the Scholastic Art Awards. So lots of achievement here. And so I'm proud of the school board and everyone in the community who supports the students. And then we also, with my colleagues here, we hosted students, and they all came from Columbia Heights High School at the Capitol for March for Our Lives, and we gave them behind-the-scene tours of the Capitol. They got a whole Capitol tour, and then we got to take them into the House chambers and
show them how we vote and go on the rostrum and see all the retiring room. So that was a really great experience that we spent together with them. And then I wanted to just mention a few things that haven't been discussed, but it's an opportunity agenda for Better Minnesota is what the governor is proposing. And education is an engine of opportunity and success. And I know that it was for my family. My parents were teenage parents. This year, they'll be married for 60 years. I'm very proud of them. But it was through my mom being able to go back and get her degree from Noka Ramsey, a 2-year nurse, and then her 4-year nursing degree and her master's that really helped my family be able to succeed. So one of the things that he's doing is looking at the early childhood access and choice. One of them you might be interested in that doesn't really necessarily relate to the school district, but it might in provider payment rates, increasing the amount of money, $85 million, to increase child care provider payment rates. And so I don't know if you want to know more about that. I can look into that if you're interested. And then $31 million for a home visiting program, which I know helps students be more successful when they get to school. They say for every dollar spent, invested, $5.70 as a return of $5.70. And then the other couple areas is a proposal to invest in helping attract and retain potential teachers by 2021, talking about the teachers shortage, retirement, relocations to other states, and career changes. And then the other thing is some dollars to help partner with communities and mental health services, dental clinics, family resource centers, college access information. And then the other area is investing in some home initiatives for families that have children to make sure they have stable housing, because I know that, if you don't have home or food in your tummy, it's kind of hard. That's really a barrier to learning. So that's another area that's being focused on. And I serve on the Higher Education Policy and Finance Committee. And what the governor is proposing is $62 million to help increase funding grants for 82,400 students and additional 6,400 students to get access to funding to help with college. Because Minnesota has one of the highest debt burden rates when people exit college. And that's such a burden on young people wanting to start families, buying homes, and moving on in life. And then the other one is quite a bit of support for career readiness at Minnesota State campuses around the state. And then, again, we're talking about housing. There's a lot of instability in housing for college students, and that's another area he's looking at. So thank you very much for having us here tonight. It's an honor to represent Columbia Heights School District and all the scholars you educate here. Thank you.
Do we have any questions, comments? Laura?
I have several. Okay, so maybe some of it maybe we could have lunch or something like that, because I have a whole long thing I want to talk about mental health, especially with regards to the schools, and what we can do to stop the cycle, basically. But I have some more specific questions. One was about the data, the desegregation of the data. How would that look in a district of our size, where you're starting to go into subgroups, where the cells are going to be too small for us to actually be able to report that accurately? And it does require more time to do this, and time is always such a precious thing in our district, because time is money, and money needs to be spent on the kiddos, not on forms. So
Yes,
I'm just kind of going out there.
right.
I understand the need for wanting to look into this.
Right now, you do check off the box for the main racial groups. This would just subgroup underneath that in a few of the cases, so it's really like one more check. But I forgot what you said before that. Just the time.
Sometimes we have a cell that
Okay,
is
yes.
too small to actually do an accurate measurement on it, or
Yes.
the measurement would be, it's not useful.
That
Because
was-
you're talking about you're talking about an identifiable student.
That was considered in because they wouldn't go under a group that was under 1,000 in the state of Minnesota for that very reason of being able to identify. So it's actually, gosh, I don't have it listed here. It's the Hmong and the Filipino and Korean, I believe, and a few others beyond that. So it's not the smaller one, although I think, and what I saw, the bill did not have the Korean, but somebody did tell me that they were added as a special because we need to know where they are. It's a very needy community as far as lacking in resources and being refugees. So I believe it goes down to that if there's a appropriateness. But that, I don't know any more than that, except the other groups are not small.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to follow up on that because occasionally there are cultural things that can kind of
Right.
interfere with how we're interacting, and being culturally sensitive can
Right.
absolutely help in this particular
Right.
process. So I'm just trying to figure out what the burden, I mean, in a district our size, I'm not entirely sure how much this is going to be useful, so.
Well, that's why they're piloting it this year. So then
Okay.
hopefully they'll
All right.
be able to, the Department of Education will be able to work out those details.
Now, now I'm going to use an opportunity to lobby here just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to apologize. One of the things that we are really looking at and seeing a high instance of is trauma-related and PTSD, basically, with some of our students that come into our district. And that can happen from moving around quite a bit, socioeconomic status, abuse, neglect, so on and so forth. And we want to be able to really support these students because their trajectory is not too terribly good if we don't get the supports underneath. Now, this is where we're spending a lot of our resources in special education. We have a great collaboration with 916 that can help us to keep some of those costs down because we're a small district, and it's important to be able to offer the best services we can for these students because we don't want to lose. I mean, right now they're our students, later they're going to be our community, and we want to make sure that they have wonderful, productive, and happy lives because it's better for everybody. But it's expensive. In our district alone, when we're looking at an additional resource of, in the 65 million across the state, and that would be a fairy tale number, which I'd love to see. Our district alone, our cross-subsidy is $5.7 million. That is more than the cost of an addition that we put on classrooms onto our grade schools. And we spend that every single year. We have a lot of work we can do in the schools to improve our facilities, but we really need some help with this. We do as much cost saving as we can. We're piloting programs for making sure that we're not bringing the kids all the way to the more expensive services, but we're seeing an increase in those particular programs too, in the need. And we're trying things in our schools. We need more space to do that. We need more resources to do that. And we can do it if we could just get a little bit of help on what was promised us.
Yes.
And we're not asking for the whole 5.7 million. 1% of that would make such a huge difference in this district. I'd like 10. I'd like it
10%
all.
would be great.
But I'll take 1%, please. It is so incredible. If you have an opportunity to visit some of the programs that we have, our anchor program is amazing, and that's being piloted. It brings all of these connections, all of these people together to really give these kids the right support that they need. Sometimes they just need enough to be able to get them over, to be able to look at their life in a new way and see possibilities. And we also need to be able to provide those services that don't interrupt their school education. One of the other things that I had also seen at some of my training over this past weekend was just how often some of these kids that are in the highest risk, that need the most stability, are pulled out of school to meet adult schedules, to meet counseling sessions during the course that they're missing every single Wednesday. So how good of a grade are they going to get? To do parental visitations, to meet with court cases that may not necessarily involve their own behavior, but the behavior of those around them. If there is some way we can keep the kids in the school as much as possible. I would even think it would be a wonderful idea to say, you know, if it involves a juvenile, let's not do it during the school day. They need that. Okay, and then we'll make a meeting and I can talk for the next 3 hours at another time at your convenience. All right?
I think you're
Thank you.
speaking to the choir, and I heed your words.
Okay, and I have lots more information and data about ACEs, about, there are some really good things we can do, and I mean, it's there. We can really make this happen. We can stop this cycle. Because it is a cycle. We can blame where it all came from, but needless to say, they're here, they're in our schools, and they deserve better. They deserve a future. And I think with a little bit of understanding, a little bit of money, a little bit of space, a little bit of patience, I think we can make it happen. Okay. I'm sorry. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Anybody else have questions or comments?
I just have one. I mean, we know that you guys are doing the good work, the hard work about the special education cross subsidy. But when we hear, you know, that it's not being taken seriously, what more needs to be done for it to be taken seriously?
It's not a budget year, actually. It's just a supplemental budget, although Governor Dayton has it in his supplemental budget. The thing that, now we're not in the majority. The legislature operates on the basis of how to make the will of the majority happen and how to have the voice of the minority heard. So we have a voice. And this is how elections have consequences. So be careful. But the majority party is looking more at the tax bill, which is conformity with the federal tax bill. We just have to conform in certain areas so that it works for for taxpayers. But they're looking at it to do actual more tax relief to businesses and corporations and whatnot. We don't actually know. They haven't produced it yet, but this is the rumor. Governor Dayton has sent out a letter today saying, if you hurt the structural balance of the state, I came in with a deficit, I'm not leaving with one, I will veto it, please don't do this. So this is money that needs to be used for the resources that we need to take care of our community, not as a constant giveaway, and that is a concern of mine. Please keep your ears and eyes open, and you may understand what Dayton's choices are as he meets these issues.
I have, Councilmember Lewis, thanks for asking that question. I just have one example of what worked one time in the past, and that was in 1999 when Governor Ventura was governor. He had proposed $88 per pupil, and that was the most that had been proposed in many, many years. Well, our school district was going to have to start cutting like Phi-Ed and art and band and, you know, all the stuff that enriches education and kids learn so much from. And so I learned and found out how much we needed to break even. And I don't know if you remember the movement 400 on the formula now. That's what was needed just to break even to keep our school district whole. Well, the long and short of it, we organized parents, and we got the teachers involved and seniors in the community and students, and we fought for it, and we ended up that year. And this is what I heard from legislators who then recruited me to run for office and the community members, is that they had never seen that kind of engagement by parents before. And we ended up, between the cross-subsidy funding, which I think we got like over $100, and we got like $200 on the formula. It ended up being, I can't remember exactly, but just say $250. Whatever it was more, and it could have even been more than that, but it was way more than the $88 that was being proposed. So it took the community support to be at the Capitol, to be having rallies, to come together to really fight for it. So never get discouraged on what's proposed. Is just like go out and say what the need is, and then fight for it and have your voices be really loud. So that's one model that worked one time, and that's just what I would recommend.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just have one comment. I want to thank you for advocating for what's best in a rating system for our schools. I think it's important for all schools, not just here, but everywhere, to not reduce our students and our teachers and our schools' to a test score. There's a lot of learning going on and a lot of things that impact test scores, and they're measures and they're important, but it goes beyond that. And a rating system based solely on test scores will be detrimental to probably every district.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
I'll just build on that, because that was my one notes, was the, using the 5-star rating. And we've worked so hard, and one of you, I had to apologize, I don't know who alluded to it or mentioned it, but I'll call it the whole student. You know, we call it life skills. We want our students to walk out of here knowing more than just how to take a test. We want them to do well on the tests. There's work very hard for that too. But you had mentioned that, you know, a lot of you were educating, you know, some of your, you know, colleagues, and if they haven't had to experience it, I bet I could come up with a couple seats if they want to come and take an MCA test. We could probably arrange
I
that for
offered them
so.
to come to Robbinsdale.
Okay,
watch the
we'll
whole trauma
make a seat
drama.
for them, but,
Yeah.
so again, just somewhat being funny but serious at the same time. But thank you for, you know, for being an advocate against that. That's not anything that we would like to see, I think. And Senator Lane, the cross subsidy, you know, I don't know what the answer is. Maybe it is the big movement, but a lot of our conversations that we have are built around the fact that we're, how many FTEs?
Between 70 and 75 FTEs.
70 and 75 FTEs, full-time. We're spending on the difference in the cross subsidy. It's very frustrating when we have to have conversations about, you know, are there going to be cuts? And, you know, it just, and I know you don't have the answer, and I think you guys are supportive of it. I just, it was a good question, and Molly not asked it, I would have asked, what can people do differently? And I don't know, we'll just, I guess, keep asking, so. but-
Right.
That's right.
And the story you told about those 3 young men that helped at the fire is an example of character.
Right.
And that's what you want in a neighbor. You don't want to know what their MCA score,
Right,
whatever
right.
core was in the past. So,
And again, and we've never tried to take away from the importance of, again, the testing piece of it, but there's more to it, to our students anyway.
Yeah.
That's what we're working towards, so. Unless if anybody has anything else?
Yeah, I
I'll-
was
Go ahead, Hal.
I was just going to add on to, I was going to jump on the bandwagon of the MCA testing and whatnot. I thought I wasn't going to say anything because I probably already said enough about this, but if the MCAs were going to be our only measure, and if we were a ruthless district and decided to teach to the MCAs, we could do it. But then we wouldn't do a whole lot of other stuff that are important in building a character of students and fulfilling our mission. So I appreciate your support of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
there is talk about going to the ACT instead of the MCA, but it's still the same problem.
Nancy?
I was just going to reiterate on the SPED cross subsidy, just our numbers, just to give you a little clue.
Nancy's our math person.
Yeah,
Hang on.
Laura mentioned that we spend $5.7 million. I just to be clear to everyone who might listen to this and to you, that's more than 10% of our budget. So 10%, more than 10% of our budget, and that money comes directly out of the general education budget, essentially. So every year we don't increase funding, that number still rises. So that percentage, that gap gets bigger, which means every year, and now that this is the third budget cycle I'm going through as a school board member, we make cuts to activities and general education based on that growing special ed cost cross subsidy. So I have to imagine, it seems like, I did a little math at our last board meeting, but our district size, we bear a disproportionate load because of our number of special ed students and our services needed amongst the state, but we'll spend $7.1 million next year on special ed, $5.7 million, which is not covered. So those are significant numbers. That's going to, eventually, we can't keep up with that. We're going to have to be making very tough decisions about cutting programs and activities for general education students and special ed students who participate in activities as well. So there's no way our district, and I think any other district who doesn't have tons of bankroll coming in from outside can keep up with that without seriously reducing. So even speaking to the people in the audience who might be hearing this, if something doesn't change in the next couple of years, things will have to change about the opportunities we offer in our districts. Otherwise, we will we'll have major financial problems. So it's not just like, hopefully in 10 years, we have a plan. For us, it's in 2 years, this is going to be big, because that number just keeps going. So,
It's the biggest mandate you have. You have no choice but to do it. And you're also supposed to be here for educating kids.
right, and we want the best possible education for all our students, those core values, including our special ed students, but a lot of those services are required by state statute. And so,
Well, and if
Yeah.
I can piggyback on that, the answer isn't to change classifications so that certain students no longer qualify for special
Yeah.
ed. So that, I mean, really looking at, kind of your comments on what the committee will explore, we have an obligation, not just as school board members and as a school district, but as citizens in our community, to provide educational opportunities for all students and to help all students reach their fullest potential. So taking away services and deciding that someone no longer qualifies, even though that wouldn't provide an equitable education, is not the answer. The answer is to provide the funding that was promised. And it's critical for all of our communities and all of our schools to have appropriate funding to educate all learners.
Right, and that's, I was disappointed to see what the work group was all about.
And I would like to comment on something else that we haven't talked about tonight, but it could have an impact on education in the future. Right now, there's a bill going through the legislature for a constitutional amendment to dedicate the auto parts sales tax to transportation. And it sounds like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But when you start pulling out $100 million and another $100 million and another $50 million out of our general fund, I mean, we're talking about amount of money that could be used for special education. So that is something that we're going to have people like unite on to make sure, because there's getting a lot of momentum behind it. So if it does get passed, we have to do it the best way we can, or really stop it so that we're not, there's like 7 different funding sources for transportation, and many of them are dedicated. And so making another dedicated one that right now comes out of a budget that supports healthcare and education is, I don't believe, a good decision. But, oh yeah, sounds like a great idea. I'm going to vote for that without knowing the consequences, what it does for our schools and our students. So I just want to mention that.
So let's rally next year. Thank you.
We need
Thank
it
you.
next
rally
year.
now.
Thank you for coming out. Jacob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Next up will be the Eat Up the Debt Community Challenge Initiative.
Well, Casey gets the computer working here. Chairman Larkin, Superintendent Kelly, board members, thank you for inviting us and putting this on the agenda for this evening. While that's coming up, just to introduce myself, my name is Nick Zymet. My wife, Brenna, and I, we've got 4 children who attend Columbia Heights Public Schools. One who's an 8th grader over at Columbia Academy. We got 2 over at North Park, and then our destructor is here in the Family Learning Center and comes 3 days a week and is a recipient of special education services. And so thank you for just all of those services. One of the things we enjoy, or I enjoy the most, is going to a Columbia Heights public school and seeing teachers wear T-shirts that just say "Proud to teach in Heights," and what we enjoy. I'm on the board of both Heights Church, where we attend here in Columbia Heights, as well as Community Grounds Coffee Shop over on 40th Avenue, and they both of those organizations' mission is really to be a blessing in our community and do whatever we can to enhance just what it means to be a member in the community, and gives us the opportunity to just give back. And so being able to give back and participate in things going on in our school district is a huge blessing to us, and so that's what Eat Up the Debt here is as well. So I'll turn it over here, Casey, to start explaining.
Chair Larkin, Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly. I'm going to start by sharing that within our district mission are the words, in partnership with supportive small town communities. Our core values include community, collaboration, respect, and innovation. Our vision includes community culture, and our strategic direction C includes honoring who we are to build strong relationships. And I share these because our school district has been striving to help many of our economically challenged families who are unable to meet their school lunch debt payments. So to help these families, we started the Eat Up the Debt campaign, which to date has raised more than $4,000 toward a goal of $20,000. That's $4,000 that the district has raised. So recently, I was approached by Nick, asking if he, along with others, could help us erase this debt. And he and I had several conversations, which later included Ms. Sousa Chozelius
Sounds all right.
from Northeast Bank. And through this collaboration, they created a community initiative to help eliminate the debt, to help these families in need. So I'm going to turn this over because the rest of this unfolding wonderful story is best told by you.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, so this last fall, just by being aware, it's one of the things that I, as a community member, just love to do is just be aware and see what's going on, see opportunities. One of the things I saw this fall was the launching of this Eat Up the Debt campaign through the district's Facebook page, which I'm glad is back up and running and working now. But that's where I first saw that, and right away, my wife and I had contributed and continue to do that on a monthly basis. And one of the things that became an opportunity this spring then is as a business, Community Grounds, one of the things we like to do is every month highlight, again, just some sort of community organization. So we've highlighted Valley View. Last month we highlighted North Park. This month is the Eat Up the Debt. Next month we're going to highlight Highland. We've highlighted the performing arts boosters in the past, and every month like to give a portion of sales that we make back to one of those organizations. So as we were thinking about things to do this spring, this Eat Up the Debt challenge had come up, and I've got a lot of energy and I've got a lot of excitement and passion, but maybe not so much organization. And so I reached out to my friends over at Northeast Bank who've really helped us. So Eat Up the Debt, just a couple things I've learned just in this process is it's not a Columbia Heights school issue. It's not about somehow how come we have a debt in Columbia Heights. It's a nationwide issue, lunch debt. If you just Google it, you're gonna find all sorts of school districts with a lot larger debts than what Columbia Heights has when it comes to lunch. In 2016, the School Nutrition Association report issued a report showing that 75% actually of school districts had students with unpaid meal debt at the end of the 15-16 school year. That was up by 4% from the previous one in 2014. We don't have to go to this, but if you just Googled GoFundMe, GoFundMe's got a specific site set aside for different school districts trying to raise money and community groups trying to raise money. So again, this is not unique. Our district, this comes from you guys, its language, is committed to educating every one of our students, yet not every student has the nutritional or financial means needed to sustain their education needs. Our district will never deny food to our students. It's really great to hear as a parent and as a community member. The burden of this debt, it's not only just a school district issue, but it's also a family issue. It's a stressor that a lot of families carry. And so what is this Eat Up the Debt challenge? Beyond even what this district is doing, the purpose of the Eat Up the Debt challenge 2.0 contemplation is to erase the almost $20,000 outstanding unpaid national school lunch program balance for qualified economically challenged District 13 families. What we're suggesting is a 24-hour break from eating. We're asking our partners to go without eating for a 24-hour period anytime during the week of April the 23rd. That's the last full week in April. To contemplate life's many challenges and blessings. We're also asking each participant to contribute or raise $120 or $5 per hour that they're going to be fasting. Any amount gets us closer to our goal of helping families to eliminate the debt. Help us to eliminate the debt for these families. So we've identified that week as a week of finding some sort of 24-hour period, especially highlighting April 27th into the 28th. That's one, a 24-hour period where a majority of our community members will be entering into a fast. And the idea is that we want to gather then as a community on Saturday morning, April the 28th at Community Grounds as a chance to celebrate as a community what we've been able to do towards this debt. So why? Well, first of all, like I said, there's just pride in Columbia Heights and Columbia Heights schools. So it's what we do in Columbia Heights. We take on big challenges, and together we accomplish large, possibly even unthinkable things. Our community cares about our students and families that attend our schools, and our community cares about Columbia Heights Public Schools. And then lastly, just on a personal level, this idea of facing hardships last spring, our family was facing a medical hardship, and we reached out to, again, the schools that our kids go to and just let them know what's going on in our home, and if our kids are needing anything, just asking, could you just pay attention or be aware of any needs that might arise. And it was just such a blessing to get responses back from Principal Burkus and Sosik over at North Park, and teachers, administrators were really great in reaching out to our kids during a crisis that we were having. Members in the community were really great to help us out as well. And so again, part of our just personal challenges, kindness was shown to us, and so we were trying to turn that around. What you see up on the screens now is again just the Eat Up Debt Challenge. So we're trying to raise awareness and funds for local families struggling to make ends meet by joining that 24-hour fast. Again, the suggestion is any time during the week of April the 23rd. On an individual level, again, the idea is if you fasted for that 24-hour period and you raised $5 for every hour, that's $120. On an organizational or group level, what we're doing is we're asking organizations or groups to recruit 5 people within their grouping, their organization, and that would raise $600 from each group that can commit to that. We've got several. Oh, I'm sorry. So before we get to the partners that we already have, here's where we stand to date. So we started this just 2 weeks ago at the beginning of April, and it didn't take long at all to get our first 12 community partners. We've had 6 individuals also just say they want to contribute on that individual level, that 120. So where we're standing at date is at a $6,600 in pledges so far of people and groups in our community saying they want to help. The goal, again, by the end of the month is to get to as close to that $20,000 as possible. With the $4,000 already raised by the district, we'd be looking at wanting to raise $16,000 altogether. So what would still be needed, just to give you an idea, would be 6 more community partners, which by the time I did this, we've already got 2 more groups that have said they want to contribute or pledge at that level, and then maybe 50 individuals at that $120. So if we can do that, that'll put us just over $16,000 and help us reach the goal. So I just want to take some time to acknowledge some of the partners to date who have said, yes, we want to contribute. So we've got Valley View and North Park PTOs. And part of the reason you're not going to see all the schools on there is some of them I just haven't gotten around to yet to talking to. Others have had some difficulty trying to figure out, well, just school schedules. It's making it real difficult. There's already so much going on in the school. Representative Kunish-Poding has indicated she's going to go to her supporters and wants to contribute on that $600, that group level. The Columbia Heights clergy, they designated a portion of their Good Friday offerings towards the Eat Up the Debt Challenge. And then you'll see some of the other organizations in this here. So Dominion, Northeast Bank, Centennial Church, Heights Next, Created to Grow, Community Grounds, Heights Church, and Araha are all community partners who've already pledged. Over the weekend, again, after this was done, we received checks from the Columbia Heights Police Association and then as well from our mayor supporting on that individual level as well. Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
Pretty exciting. Yeah, way to activate.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for taking
I'm
us on.
sorry. What I do have here, so part of this is challenging our civic and our leaders in the community as well. It's a good time to just get everyone's attention. So again, some just simple math. One of the things that Northeast Bank has done for us is really helped us break down the doability of this. And so, a couple of things that we've learned is, we've got, for example, 5 schools in our district. The PTOs have stepped up and said they want to help. Another way we could get there is if, as a district, every school, even if within every school they said we just want to, as a school, have amongst our teachers, staff, administration, if they want to contribute on that individual level. We have 5 schools, and if each school could raise $120, that'd be 10 teachers, 10 administrators at $10 each. That would get us to $600 just amongst them. 5 individuals from, say, a school board, who wanted to contribute each, would be another $600 if in some world that was something they wanted to do. So if it's, I've just happened to bring some sheets here where you can indicate if you'd like to pledge, if you want to take it and share it with any community members, groups that you're a part of. We really would just appreciate that. So there is a Facebook page. You just search in Facebook, Eat Up the Debt. There's a website that's a real low-key website, but it's got the link to the GiveMN. So that's eatupthedebt.com. Otherwise, you can join us again Saturday morning, April the 28th, 10 o'clock over at Community Grounds, and we'll be collecting funds there as well. And we just hope to, again, celebrate as a community. So appreciate your time.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, next up would be Adventure Club, Mini Adventure Club fees.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly. I'm here this evening with Director Carr to ask for our annual review of our Adventure Club and Mini Adventures fees. And this would be for 2018-2019. We create worlds of opportunity for every learner, not only in our educational settings, but also in our childcare settings. This evening, amongst the core values that we'll be focusing on are community and integrity. This child care program serves our community, and the integrity piece is really about the child care program needs to be self-sustaining, so the fees need to cover the cost of the program. So this change that we're asking for is approximately a 2% increase, which reflects the approximate 2% increase in staffing costs, salaries and benefits, and other costs. The change would take place on the first day of the school year, so that would be September 4th, and it would involve both Mini Adventures and Adventure Club. For Mini Adventures, you can see on the PowerPoint that we indicate what this current year's fees are and what the fee increase would be. So for example, if a family enrolls in the 5-day-a-week program, the fee would go from $226 a week to $230, so a $4 increase. If the child is enrolled 1 day a week, it would go from $54 to $55. And with Adventure Club, also an approximate 2% increase. It goes from $17.50 a day to $18 a day. $20.50 a day this year to $21, $36 a day to $37 a day, and for school release days, and same with for summer. And a reminder that we are open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and some students really are here for close to 12 hours. A reminder that the fees include meals and snacks, field trip costs, all the curriculum and program supervised by Jody Gadiant, our manager for Adventure Club and Mini Adventures. Mini Adventures is 4-star Parent Aware rated. That's the highest level of quality rating. And our activities include games, arts, literacy, guided circle time, outdoor time in Blooming Heights, and also in the playgrounds and special events. Often we're asked if we include scholarships. We don't have scholarships within our own fee structure. In order to do that, we would need to increase the fee for everyone in order to have that buffer. Instead, we try to keep our fees as low as possible, and then fee assistance is available both through our Pathways 1 and Pathways 2 scholarships for Mini Adventures, and then also through the Anoka County and Anoka, Ramsey, and Hennepin County Child Care Assistance, so CCAP. And that could be either for Mini Adventures or for Adventure Club. And this evening, we're bringing this to you as an information item. We will be coming back at your next board meeting as an action item. And I've done all the talking.
Very good job.
Is there anything that
No.
you would like to add to it?
No, that's it.
Okay,
Any questions?
thank you.
So that 4-star rating has nothing to do with MCA tests, correct?
That's correct.
Start that,
But
yeah.
it is a level of
Scholars take
quality of our instruction and curriculum.
Okay, so this will be coming back on the 24th for action.
As an action item, correct.
Anybody else have anything? Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I think you're staying there, aren't you? Both of you are. Next up is the adult education lease.
Here we go. Chair Larkin, members of the school board, and Superintendent Kelly. On the overhead screen or on the screen, you can just see a summary of the lease. We've been negotiating on the adult basic education lease in Columbia Heights, and as you're aware, we've looked at for different accommodations throughout the year and done some looking, but we're really in the best space that is available at the time. So in conjunction with the Fridley Public Schools, we've been negotiating a new lease. And I just got the copy of it today, so that's this is summarizing where we're at right now. The current lease expires June 30th, 2018. The lease costs are shared with the Fridley Public Schools, and we pay for our share through the lease levy annually. On the terms of the proposed new lease, we keep the same square footage, so it's 8,629 square feet, no added square footage. The owner has agreed to upgrade the HVAC system, so the heating and air conditioning ventilation system, to improve the temperature control, which is a much-needed improvement. They've also agreed for 1 month rent-free so that we could make some building improvements to just paint and maybe repair some flooring that needs to be replaced. And then the increase that's proposed right now is between 2.5 and 2.6%, which would bring the square footage cost next year to $11.69 a square foot. At the end of the 5-year lease, it would be at $12.91 a square foot. And again, it's a 5-year renewal. So we are still negotiating that 2.5 versus 2.6% a little bit with the owner. But we wanted to bring this as an informational item to the school board so that we could bring the finalized lease to the April 24th meeting for action.
Any questions, comments?
I have one question,
Mm-hmm.
and I know I've asked this before, but I can't remember the answer. Is this a gross lease, or do we have to pay operating costs?
You have to pay operating costs, but that's absorbed by the Adult Basic Ed Cooperative or contingent program out of Anoka.
Yeah, the program covers its operating costs, and then the lease levy covers the
Right, so
rent.
the numbers that are presented here are just lease.
I meant with the lease. So do we pay additional costs like snow removal, any facilities costs, common area maintenance?
We don't, but the program does.
Okay.
So the adult basic ed revenues that are generated are paying that operating part, and the lease is, the actual lease is what Fridley and Columbia Heights split.
And the operating cost, that we get from our contact hours with students. So that's the tension. We're always needing more space and more time with students that generates more income, but it doesn't immediately generate more income. So we're always kind of playing with that. And our program is the most robust program in the whole Metro North Consortium. So we're very, very proud about the robust programming and the waiting lists, actually, that we have. It's a very well-used program.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is the K-12 Activities Program and Procedures Manual.
While our presenters are setting up, I would just like to take a few minutes to set this particular agenda item up. I think it was about this time last year when we started looking at what was our activity program fees, what were the procedures, what did the program entail, and we got together and we kind of blushed and said we could have a more robust structure around procedures and programs. And at that time, I had promised the board that we would get on it and we would bring you something back. It's not something that you have to approve. It is something that we would like you to know that we have had done. And so this will not come back as a governance question, but it is an information item because we want you to see what we've actually done in the area of both the program and defining it and the procedures on how we are going to run it. In addition, in the update this week, you will receive from Director Carr the cash handling procedures as well, but we didn't think that we needed to bring that to the board directly, but we wanted to let you know that that was done. And so I'm going to pass handouts out, books, and then I'm going to pass the baton to our presenters.
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly, thank you for that introduction. This evening, I have Antoine Harris, the Athletic Director, or Activities Director, and the Principal, Robleski, from the high school, here to help with the presentation. And the presentation goes to the heart of the mission to create worlds of opportunity for every learner, which we've heard over and over this evening about how proud we are of the activities that are available for our students. The core values really touches on almost every one of these core values, but I think what we're doing here this evening is really, in particular, about excellence and integrity. The procedures manual, I'm not going to go over it in great detail, but I did just want to go over the areas that are covered in the procedures manual. So if you look at the index, there's 5 main areas. It talks about fundraising, cash receipts, activities, employment, and then also exhibits that have a lot of forms and reference materials inside of the procedures manual. The procedures manual is really, the purpose is to give information to assist the activities department in their daily processes. It's a living document, meaning it changes all the time. MDE, the Department of Education, might make changes in statute or in recommendations. The school board might make changes in the school board policies, but it's an ever-changing living document, which is true of most procedure manuals. As we got into this school year and started looking at things, we've been working closely with Director Harris and also his assistant, Jake. I can't remember Jake's last name. Anderson. And in particular, we've been concentrating on cash receipts security. And so we've made some changes, made sure all the bags that they're transporting cash in are locked. Also made sure that Columbia Academy's safe was in working order, so that when there were activities on the weekend that were at Columbia Academy and they didn't have access to the safe over here in this building, that it would still be secured in a fireproof safe in the building. And then just talked about, just for an operating procedures, about secure handoff between staff. So when they're transporting cash in the locked bags, you know, not to leave it somewhere for someone else to pick up, but that it was actually handoff person to person, and if this person is available, where do you go next? So just kind of operating procedures that way. Areas to work on next that we know we haven't touched base on in this manual is, in the manual, there's a reference to a student finance advisory committee, and that needs to be convened next year and incorporated into our processes. We also need to do some ongoing training for staff. There are a lot of staff involved in activities, for gate receipts and different things that are run on the weekends. And so to come up with a way to really do ongoing training for those staff as they come and go and help out in this area. Because we can't expect them to all pick up the procedures book and read it. People just don't do that. And then also an annual review of the forms for operational effectiveness. So, at the end of the year, what have we done? What's working? What's not? What's understandable? What's not? And just to continue to do some process improvement. Next, I'll hand it over to Antoine to talk about the program.
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly, good evening. The manual you have in front of you, the activities manual, it's rather thick. We've spent some time, some real time going through it and making sure we added the things that needed to be added and updated the things that needed to be updated. And so what I want to do right now is pick out a few things that I felt was very important for us to discuss at any given time. If you would like to stop me and ask a question or grab something else we can talk about, I'm here and we can go from there. So if you could turn to page 15 in the activities manual. And I'll give you an opportunity to do such.
The program or the procedural program?
Program, excuse me, program. The first point that was very important, especially after what we had an opportunity to accomplish this year with our wrestling and boys basketball, is attending Minnesota State High School League state events. It's very important. We talk about release time from school and when students can go and such. And so we talked about a maximum of an hour and a half to be released from the school. We also discussed having a parent permission note in order for the students to be released. And we also talked about the missed work that could happen from the athlete standpoint, but also the students. I think that's a very important thing to discuss, and so we want to make sure we touch base on that in this manual. The next page I would like you to turn to is page 20. On page 20, it begins the discussion revolving around duties and responsibilities for multiple aspects and multiple people within the school. Activities director, which is myself, it has a long list of what my job duties are, and I want to make sure everyone knew it, everyone can understand what my daily job entails, as well as Jake Henderson's the activity manager. So it talks about that on the next page, which is page 21. As you go from 21 to I want to say 22 up to 24, it discussed head coach advisor. And so the whole goal of this section was to make sure everyone knew it was transparent to all of the constituents, to all of the students, to all of the staff, and all of the coaches, the job duties. I think that's very important to know in any job that you have. Another important piece that we've added, which is on page 27. On page 27, we talked about team captains and a team captain's role with each individual sport activity is very important. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for student leaders to be able to speak up, to be able to lead, to be able to work with their peers, and also set an example. And so we wanted to put some guidelines in our book for our student athletes to understand the expectations that we have for them within the community, but also within us as a school. So that's where we are with 27. If you could move forward to page 30. Page 30 is important to me because it discusses program evaluation of each activity, of each sport. In light of, having the opportunity to lead a group of coaches, it's very important that they maintain a certain standard in helping the kids be successful, whether it's an activity, whether it's a sport, but also to be able to lead them and make sure that they understand the importance of it. And so We will have an evaluation for our coaches and our advisors, but we'll also have an evaluation for our student athletes. At the end of the year, we'll give a season-ending survey, and that gives them an opportunity to discuss how they feel, how they've been treated, what type of season they've had, what type of input they would like to give. And I think it's very important feedback for any coach or any advisor, as well as within even a teacher within the classroom, to receive a survey. If you could flip back to page 13 for me. Page 13 talks about equipment, which is essential for each sport and activity. At the bottom of page 13, there's a grid that we put together. And in that grid, discuss what each individual sport, what we are responsible for, making sure that they have. I thought it was very important to discuss this because I wanted to make sure, in light of, coaches, reaching out and asking for support versus what, we should do as a district. And so in this grid, it talks about, for example, in soccer, we will supply uniforms, we'll supply warm-ups, balls and bags and goal nets and scorebooks. And those are the things that we will supply as a district. And so each sport will be able to take a look at that and know what we will supply. So I thought that was a very important piece to add to this manual and discuss. The last piece that I want to discuss is on page 53, which is actually Exhibit I believe. This talks about supervisor assignment and budget assignment, which myself and Mr. Robleski had great conversations about the budget assignments because it's very important for, as any school, as a high school, or elementary or middle, to know where the budget codes are coming from, to know who's paying for what. And I think, having this within the book was very important to put out there so everyone can see the transparency in what we're doing. Any questions for me?
I'm trying to find the page that you were talking about.
We don't have page
I don't think the
55.
page numbers are the same on our books.
Go back 3.
Okay.
Where is it?
Ish.
Free from the back.
3 from the back?
From the back.
2
Okay.
full pages.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It'll look like this.
Start at the very back. There we
Right there.
This one?
Yes. I think so.
Oh, thank you.
So the breakdown is high school sports, high school activities, same with middle school sports and activities, and same with elementary.
Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for myself? Not one?
I think this is great. I think that adds clarity, and want to thank everyone who is involved, and just adding clarity for people and their roles. I think that's always good.
One of the things that I wanted to add that Director Harris has, when you're looking at this, who does what and who is supervising, we had to take this with the contract as well, because many times activities pop up without our knowing it, and then pretty soon it is like, well, we've been doing this for a year or two, and said, who has approved this? And now all of a sudden in teacher negotiations we're in. So this will help clarify contract negotiations as well as for the community whose chain of command if they want to contact someone. Another area that I want to thank Brian Hannikin's also is on page 26, and that has to do with keys and access. Because there have been many times in the years that I've been here that when we had just the key system, that someone would lose an outdoor key, and then with 55 doors at the high school, it was a question of how are we going to solve that problem. And so that has been streamlined with prox cards and access, and making sure responsible parties that have those keys, if they would leave the organization or would not take those with, and in addition to that their access would be cut off. And then I also would like to thank both Dan, Antoine, and Christine and Denise, who is not here, Denise Sundstrom, up in the finance office, because we really wanted to make it very clear for the boosters and that this is what we pay for around here, and if someone is coming to you for this, this is our responsibility, and this is how we take care of the kids. And then if there's something extraordinary that they'd like to do beyond that, they can go through the athletic director or activities director, and then have a legitimate ask, so that we're just not flying, so to speak, by the seat of our pants, and that the boosters get confused, or all boosters. Not you particularly, but I'm just saying whether it's the music boosters and I can tell you from when I was both upstairs and downstairs, there's always has been a little bit of tension about what is the school really paying for. And so we will hope that this will clarify, and we want to sit down with the different individuals that would like to know different parts of this book and explain to them how we're doing things. And I think that, as Christine said earlier, this is a living, breathing document, so we'll revise it on a yearly basis. But this really has a solid, sturdy platform now on what that program really does. Having said that, we had a lot of data around here. We had a blue ribbon task force on activities, K-12 activities, and many of you saw the results of that if you were on the board at that time. But as far as the program structure and the procedures, now they are delineated. So if someone's asking, where is that written, we say it is written here. And for that, it was long in the making, and I want to thank all involved.
The only thing I want to add, and it's based off the core values of excellence and collaboration, none of this would have been possible without the extreme help of Don Hoyle. I really appreciate the help that you gave with this, so I wanted to make sure I said that. So, thank you.
I just want to make a comment. I mean, I've only been on the board for 7 years, but I've never seen a document like this. This is great, especially if we're going to be reviewing this and updating this on a regular basis. To have all that information in one spot, it kind of removes some of the gray area. We're all thinking and doing things the same way. You know, that's good for consistency. That builds trust and transparency. So thank you. This looks like a lot of work. Thank you.
That's a good answer.
Enough said.
All right. Nobody have anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ties update, Brian.
How so much can be said with one sound.
Just a sound, not even a word.
Well said.
Yeah.
Oops. All right. Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. This evening, Director Carr and I want to present you with a little update on what's been happening with our work towards our TIES withdrawal and some of the things that have been going on within the TIES organization, just kind of a timeline, what's happened this winter and so far, if we can call it spring. Again, our mission statement in creating worlds of opportunity for every learner with our core values of community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. So, a little context in the beginning here. On June 27th, 2017, the school board passed a resolution in regards to district TIES membership. And that resolution, be it resolved that the School Board of Columbia Heights Public Schools, ISD 13, authorizes and directs its superintendent to issue a notice of withdrawal of the district's membership in the Technology and Information Educational Services TIES Consortium, effective July 1st, 2018. And just an overview of the products and the work that we had ahead of us at that point. EduPoint Synergy is our student information system that is hosted with TIES. IQ is our data system, one-click reports for teachers and how teachers access student data. iContent, our records retention system. EdSpring, we use for reading oral fluency. Keep Certified for professional development tracking. Cognos, which is our data warehouse. Our HR payroll and finance system. FeePay, using for activities and athletics, food service, and school fees and fines. So an online payment system. Email archiving, internet service, and offsite disaster recovery. So the list, very extensive for the things that we use through ties. So over the course of this year, we've been working on how we're going to make changes to those products as we withdraw from ties. So looking from left to right, left is our product. The center is our 2017-18 status, which is all ties. And to the right is 18-19 school year, so for next school year, starting July 1, what we're doing. So I'm just going to kind of go through each one. And if you have any questions in the end, before we move on after this, I'll ask. So EduPoint Synergy, our student information system, is currently hosted by Ties. It is not a Ties product. Ties is just hosting it for us. So we're changing our hosting provider and who will provide support for us, which will be Region 1 out of Moorhead. And actually, when we transitioned to EduPoint Synergy for our student information system, Region 1 was the one that helped us implemented, provided the professional development as we implemented, and then our database moved from them over to Ties. So we already have a partner or a relationship with Region 1 with this system. We feel very comfortable with them and their support with this system. IQ and Cognos, again, currently for this year is Ties. So we're going with a product called Viewpoint. It's a product that is very well developed in the education. It's very teacher focused. Central Minnesota Educational Research and Development Council, or ERDC. And so I think we're well on our way with that and extracting our data and getting our data into that system. So we've already signed a contract and we're moving forward with that. I know one of the bigger school districts in the state, St. Paul, it's a product that they use. So we're looking forward to what we can do with that new data system. For EdSpring, we're looking at a product called FastBridge for next year. And that's with our current product, it was just reading. So with this product, we'll be looking at reading, math, and social emotional behavior. So definitely a much more extensive look and progress monitoring, looking at data with our students. Keep certified, that professional development tracking, licensure tracking. So our new system for HRP Finance, Power School, has a module built into it for that. So at no additional cost, we can use that module. Fee pay. For next year at this point, we're looking at continuing with fee pay. There's 2 products on the list that we're going to continue for next year. Fee pay is the most integrated and the best system at this point for our finance department, and making sure that we understand where money is coming from and how to keep track of things within the finance system. And so we'll continue with that. And if any changes arise, we'll definitely let the board know. I-content or records retention. So, think about the old microfilm, the documents that we're scanning in and creating microfilm. So today we have a better way of doing that with our records retention system, scanning in and having digital PDFs or TIFF documents. So we're moving to, we're in the current process of implementing Laserfiche. Northeast Metro 916 has a contract, and we're for cost savings, many of the member districts purchase their licensing through Northeast Metro 916 so we can save money. We're very fortunate, I think, to have that opportunity because it can even do more than just records retention, and we can do workflow management with that system, the new system. So
I just saw the first data extract this morning, and it looked really good. So they've already done the first pull out of ties, so we know that we can get all of our data out, and it's in a nice format. So we had a good meeting this morning about it.
Disaster recovery, currently with ties. We, for about the same cost, I think in the first year it's going to cost a little bit more. After that, we'll actually be saving money for disaster recovery, and we'll actually have a more robust system with Microsoft Azure cloud storage. Our email archiving, we've already transitioned and are doing through Office 365 for our staff email archiving. Internet services, we have 1 year left on our contract. So for internet service for the 18-19 school year, we'll continue with ties. And then we'll, at that point, put out a bid proposal through E-rate for internet service, and we'll see where we go from there, looking at price and what others have to offer. And then our HR pay finance system, I left that one last. That one's definitely a big one for us. Christine and her team and Director Bennett and her team have been working a lot in this area. If you want to make any comments on that.
Sure, we are spending an inordinate amount of time on that because we have to make payroll July 11th and have it work. And so we have a very short time frame, and we're having a lot of training sessions. The first week of May, Power School has been out 1 week. I can't remember which week it was, beginning of April, and they're coming out for one more week at the beginning of May. And then we'll be doing our first parallel payroll towards the end of May. And so it's very time intensive, and the staff have been doing a great job kind of doing their job and then also attending to this too. So I want to thank everyone in the business office and in the human resources office, because it's very stressful, and but it's very important for us to get it right.
So as you can see, the list is long. There's a lot of work. In a given school year, making one of these systems transition is a big deal, let alone 10-plus systems. Some of them we've already fortunately made, but they're the easier ones too. So it's been a lot of work, but I think that in the end, in some places, we're definitely saving some money. We're definitely getting more bang for our buck, and in other places, it's just a moving, the dollars and cents from one place to another place, and it's a comparable product because the product that we had was a really good product. But we feel good about everything that we're doing and what we'll have available to us in the coming year. So recent activity. To get back to January, TIE's Executive Committee passed a resolution to recommend TIES as an organization dissolves. January 23rd, TIES received a letter of an intent from the National Joint Powers Alliance, or NJPA, giving them exclusive negotiating rights through March 30th, when it's expected due diligence to be completed. So looking at different aspects of the organization and what's the viability of them purchasing part of it or taking over part of it or all of it. January 24th, there was a special called meeting in which a vote happened of all the members to dissolve TIES, and that vote was 47-1. The one was an abstain. February 23rd, TIES was notified by the firm that they were working with on the sale of the building, that they were no longer interested in proceeding with a purchase agreement with TIES on the building and or working as their broker. On March 13th, TIES notified the districts that were remaining or that were still members in the next fiscal year that for 18-19, the cost per pupil for those districts would be $35 per student. So our membership currently this year was $5 per student, plus the additional $7 that they added. So those that did not withdraw are paying $35 a student next year. And that's the number that we have right now. And I would say that that's probably open to change depending.
I think they're paying actually 47. I believe it's additional, so it's the 12 from this year and then added. So I think it's 47.
So obviously a big number, much bigger than I think that we really could afford.
Mm-hmm.
March 22nd, we're notified that TIES had received a letter from EduPoint, Synergy, our student information system company, that effective June 30th, 2018, they would be terminating their agreement with TIES. So TIES would no longer have an agreement to support and host EduPoint. So any district that wasn't withdrawing and or already had a plan to move their database to another hosting company now is forced to, which we already had a plan in place. We're already moving to Region 1. The remaining districts are going to be moving to most likely EduPoint and or Direct and or another product. And that'll be up to those districts. So EduPoint has terminated their contract with TIES at the end of this fiscal year. On April 5th, we heard that Ties had a team from Cushman and Wakefield that toured the Ties building in regards to the sale of the building. The report will be shared with the executive committee in its regular meeting on April 12th. And then we received notification on the 5th that the National Joint Powers Alliance will be changing their name to Sourcewell starting in 2018, completed their due diligence process as planned, and that they're preparing a presentation to the executive committee on April 16th. And then there's a called meeting for superintendents on April 25th. And at that meeting, Ties will be sharing the North Joint Powers Alliance proposal and impact and implications for owner-member districts. They'll share information regarding the sale of the building, which Cushman and Wakefield, based on their presentation. And then they'll share information on a proposed language change in the levy legislation. So currently, Ties did a major remodel to their event center or training center, and they're levying member districts for those dollars, and that levy goes until March or until 2023. So there's some time yet. And so as Ties dissolves and as members leave, how does that work? So Ties the organization feels they can still levy the districts, and there's those of us that feel that they cannot continue to levy the districts. So Ties, so with those questions on the authority to continue levying, Ties feels that it's not clear and they want to make it clear. So they worked with, drafted a bill, an amended version of the statute clarifying that withdrawing districts may continue to levy until the building debt is fully paid in February 1st, 2023, and that all districts can continue to levy after Ties dissolves. If the bill passes, the amended law will affect on July 1st, 2018, and they are working with AMSD on the legislation. So that's something new that we just received information on. I wasn't aware prior that this was happening, but it was definitely something that we had questioned, and I think all the other districts were questioning too. How can you continue to levy if we're not members? So Ties, the organization's approach to that is to work on legislation to clarify that they can.
And AMSD is supporting that?
It appears so, yes. They're assisting them, well, I don't want to say support. They're assisting them with the legislation.
Support.
No, it really is more of assisting because all of the member districts really belong to AMSD, and so as part of their policy and legal staff, they're kind of putting it together.
Yep.
Where it flies is really up to it would be up to the AMSD board I think the executive board to decide if they were going to take a policy statement on that. And I don't believe at this time they have, but I think they're helping clarify. They have done some things like that for us as well, for the 3 small districts, when we were trying to say that we were not getting an equal pie of some of the aid down at the Capitol. They actually helped us draft some of the legislation, but they didn't make it a policy statement for the whole organization.
So, and originally, with our dollars, withdrawal percentage that part that we owed of the liability with the Ties organization, the building was included in that. And there was questions, how can the building be included there and continue to levy? So there's definitely some questions there that, hopefully in the coming weeks here, we'll get more information. And I guess at this point, that's what we have.
Well, and going back to that as well, as far as that conference center, if someone buys the conference center, then the legislation or the clarification is moot.
Right.
And I have heard that there are people that are interested in just the conference center, but not necessarily the entire building, the bigger building that goes with it. So that, I would say, is in flux as well.
Which we'll know more information once, I'm sure we'll hear what happened at the executive committee. I don't believe that's parts of the closed session. There's a closed part to it. I think that is actually the closed section. So we'll hear on the 25th at the superintendent's meeting. We'll have more clarity.
Any other questions? Okay. Next up would be conversation about the bond. School board's going to be presented with a brief overview of the bond referendum, including North Park renovations and the high school performing arts center and related renovations.
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. This evening, we just wanted to do a real brief overview of the bond referendum question and the components of that bond referendum question, and then the governance questions at the end. Again, our mission, creating worlds of opportunity for every learner, with our core values of community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. So just as a reminder, the proposed facility bond referendum, that North Park Elementary space needs, upgrades, and maintenance. There's 4 key components to this. Columbia Heights High School Performing Arts Center upgrades, Columbia Heights High School band space, Columbia Heights High School performance or gymnasium performance space, improved performance space. So just those key components of, again, for brevity, learning space needs at North Park, including a library, separate science and art classrooms, early learning incubator in the media arts labs. And again, remember from discussions of what we've been able to do at the other buildings and what are the needs at this school, and in North Park not having that early learning incubator space and not having those same level of separate art and science that the other 2 elementaries have, and then of course that library. Grounds and maintenance, again, we've been able to update the other 2 buildings and North Park with the hill and some of the more significant needs that they have there. For that play area, again, remember the buses also drop off and pick up on the playground. So then again, that new drive entrance separating the buses from parents and staff. Building security, we heard earlier community members talking about providing that additional security needs at North Park with that single point of entry for all visitors. Again, that hill kind of creates that dynamic that we have currently, and then in moving those administration offices, again, making that enhanced security entrance for all visitors that come to that school. And then at the high school, we talk about those learning space needs, that performing arts center. We talk about the needs in that space, lighting, the audio video needs, the control booth, the stage, the curtains, seating and dressing rooms. I mean, all those pieces, if you've been in that Performing Arts Center, you can see as things have deteriorated over the years, and there's a lot of work that's needed there. And again, a lot of that equipment is borrowed equipment that we're using from the technology side. The band space, providing an appropriate space, acoustics, lighting, furnishing, storage and instrument repair, and classroom and practice space, overall classroom and practice space. Again, the low ceilings in that current band space, the pipes that you have to duck under when you're on the back part of the riser in that space. We're growing beyond capacity of that space. The storage is not sufficient. The practice space isn't sufficient. So there's a lot of needs in that band space. And then additional performance space. We know that it's very challenging getting our entire bands on our PAC stage, a Performing Arts Center stage. And we have our community, that is our main presentation stage and our performance stage in our community. And so it has a lot of use. So having an additional space and a larger space to be able to do those big band performances is greatly needed. So again, the bond referendum ballot question, I'll just try to read it real quickly. Should the Board of Education of Columbia Heights ISD 13 be authorized to issue general obligation school building bonds in the amount not to exceed $16 million to provide funds for the acquisition and betterment of school sites and facilities, including the construction and equipping of an addition to the Columbia Heights High School facility to add support spaces for use by the band, choir, and theater programs, and the renovation, remodeling, upgrading, equipping, and construction of improvements to the High School Performing Arts Center for school programs and for community arts and civic events. The construction and equipment in addition to the North Park Elementary facility to provide new early childhood and kindergarten classroom space and expanded cafeteria space. The reconfiguration of the space in the school facility to provide space for an adequate library, and the renovation, remodeling, upgrading, equipping, reconfiguration of space and construction and of security and safety improvements to the school facility, and the construction of playground, parking lot, drop-off, and traffic flow improvements to the school site. So that's the question. So again, that leads us to the governance questions to the board. If we put the question on the ballot, what? Again, those 4 key things, and when. And the upcoming election date would be November 6, 2018.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the question, and we'll start our conversation, is does the board, and it's I'm gonna follow the notes right here, but does the Board of Education want to move forward with putting a bond question on the ballot? That's the first question that needs to be addressed.
I think I'll speak for myself. We've heard plenty from the community, and I think it's something that we need to address. And I would say that, yes, we definitely put it on, and then we discuss what.
Okay, I'm certainly supportive of moving it forward.
Agreed.
I'm all in.
So that's the if we put
That
a
would be,
question.
that's whether or not we're going to put a
Okay.
question on the ballot. The next question, the way it's broken down here is, do we want to make any changes to that question? And I'll say right now, no, absolutely not. I mean, if it was a need then, those needs are still there. And, you know, I'll start with that, and then I can add if there's any other comments, but that's my personal belief, is it goes back the way it was last fall. Questions, comments?
I'm trying to formulate what I want to say. I'm in agreement with you. I'm in agreement with you, but I want to further discuss.
Sure.
I think the 6 of us agreed last year that these were necessities. We wouldn't have asked if we didn't feel like this was the ask that we needed to make. I look at everything that we have on there and everything that we've discussed since I've been on the board, and I know you guys have discussed it previously. There are important things that we have going on, and there are definite equity issues at North Park. There are needs that school has. There's obligations that we have as a board for that facility. We also have an obligation to our entire district, and there are needs that have presented themselves at the high school as well. And not just for the high school, but, you know, the performing arts spaces, or the Performing Arts Center is the only performing arts center that we have in our community. And there's definite work that needs to be done there as well. And we have a continuing growing band program, and our band students don't fit in the band room. They don't fit now, and as we have more band students that are coming up, they're certainly not going to fit then. And what obligation do we have to provide the best educational environment for all of our students?
So one thing, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I feel, I've been contacted by community members, and I'm going to guess that I'm not the only person. I'm in support of all these questions. We would not have asked as a board last year if we didn't think it was needed. I do worry about whether or not we group it all together again, because I don't want to lose it based on some of the feedback from some of the parts of this. And so I don't know if that's something we discuss, if we break it into different components this time, so that we don't lose North Park based on what people are thinking isn't a need. And I know that we all see it one way, or, you know, we agreed at one point, but I don't want to lose the North Park question based on some of the other stuff on there. So I don't know if that's something we can discuss. If people, thoughts, I want to hear from people.
Splitting the questions is an option. It would be spending the money to write a second question for the ballot, which
the money should not necessarily be the issue, but it's not inexpensive. But yes, that's an option. And I guess I'd be, again, I'm just one question. She said it much more eloquently, but one question. These things were important, then they're important. Now, that's my own personal belief, but yes, it's a great question, Molly, and the answer is yes, the ballot can be split.
And I just don't know if, I don't want to be the only one speaking on this. I want to know what people are thinking, because I feel like I have to bring that up because people have talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think that certainly tactically, it might be a good option to split the question up, but if we were going to do that, we should have done that before. I think still putting everything in there and saying, this is all the needs, and this is what you get. We're talking about value here. We're going to be able to do all of this with that amount of money, which is, I think, is a very good value. If we start splitting it up, it's like, well, this is like super important, but this isn't quite as important, and this is all needs to be done. It really, really does. And in not passing, it was a very small margin.
I am hearing what you're saying, and this is something I have been struggling with for, quite honestly, for months. And like you, have had conversations with community members, and I wish those conversations would have given me definitive direction on what the best choice is for this. And where I look at, we've identified that these are needs. And again, like I said, we wouldn't have done the ask if it wasn't important. But I get it. And I look at, we have had community member after community member coming to talk to us about specifically the safety and security issues that are facing us at North Park. And in order to do that right, you open that can of worms, right? So if you're going to secure the entrance, move the administration offices, then you're going to do this. That makes sense. I go back to what some of the students taught me is that it's about all of us, all of the time, and what I fear is compartmentalizing almost our ballot questions based on schools. And it's tough because that's what this is. We have North Park and we have the Performing Arts Center and the band room, which are both located at the high school. And in other years, maybe that would be different. In other years, maybe you'd have a little bit of something at each of the schools. But right now, we've got 2 schools, but they're impacting our entire district and our program. But I also, like you, and the feedback that I've gotten is, is one area more important than the other? I don't know. I think they're both different. There's different needs, but I struggle with what the right answer is for that too.
I'm really glad you asked the question, because I think it's good for us to have this discussion and for community members and people who have vested interest, taxpayers, to see that we're really actually considering their voice in this. I think for me, it's a hard question to ask, and I'm glad you asked it. But for me, as I have gotten that feedback, I have heard such a broad range of thought on this that it's hard for me to say if splitting it up is necessarily wise. Not that it would be terribly unwise, I wouldn't want to argue that, but the idea that, you separate the issues and it gets might get a little hazy, right? It becomes then like a popularity contest for needs. And I would actually have a fear that there could be a segment of the community who might just say, well, North Park's just one school that only impacts less than 1/3 of our students, so is it really that important? That could be the flip side of splitting them, and hopefully we'll have a very informed community by the time we get to the election, and they'll see the whole picture, and maybe it wouldn't matter at all. But for me, I don't know. Right now, I would say not to split it if I had to lay down something today. So just to play the cards, I'm totally willing to hear discussion, and I don't want to end the conversation. I don't want that to be the definitive, but that's where I would stand. So
My thought on this is to keep it bundled together, just to help us create and keep momentum. But I think we do need to do things differently. We need to access the community. We need to really hear what people want. And I think tomorrow's session is a good opportunity for that. Next week as well. I really, really want to hear from the community what they want. I want the community to know that we are listening. They're stakeholders too. And that's important. And that's something we have to work. We have to work really hard to connect that way. And that's how we're going to get this to pass.
Can I clarify your statement if that's, when you say we need to listen to what they want? Are you saying regarding this bond or just in general for the
In
strategic
general.
plan? Okay, cool.
In
That's-
general.
that's good.
And
I just-
yeah, the strategic planning thing tomorrow is not regarding this.
Thank you. I just wanted to
Yeah,
make
But
thank you
voices-
for the
The
clarification.
voices will merge.
It's
You know,
just-
like you're going to hear trends.
It's, because what I've heard a lot of support for wanting to push this bond forward again, to put it on the ballot again. But I've also heard enough from some community members about just in general not feeling like they're heard. So it's kind of like, then I don't want to participate. And that's not good for us because the onus is on us to reach out to the community.
I would agree, and I would say that when you talk about doing things different, we need to, you know, as a board, if that's what we decide to do, number one, lead by example, but we're all in, you know,
Yes.
and we support it, and we're out
Yes.
there, and we're listening to people so that they feel like they have some ownership in our district, and hopefully that will lead forward. But we need a community-wide, district-wide, all-in to make this be successful, so.
Absolutely.
So I agree with you. I think, you know, if there's something we can do to help them feel like they're more a part of, you know, the district, then I'm all for that as well.
Yep.
I did just want to clarify that we weren't asking for input on it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you did. It's getting late, so I didn't realize it came out that way. So I'm really glad that you did clarify, because that's not, thank you.
And I just want to clarify that I'm good with going all of it bundled together. I just wanted to have that conversation and know if anyone else. But I think that when we're elected, we're looking at making the best decision for most of the students. And I think that's really at the heart of this, and that's what I think I'm hearing we're all on the same page then.
And I want to thank you for bringing that up, because that is something that folks have talked to me about as well, and I'm guessing that we've all have heard that same comment. I think, you know, we have to understand what the implications of what we do and the impact that has on our constituents, on our community members, on their taxes. You know, this is important, and this impacts people's day-to-day living every day when you start looking at where the money's coming from. But we also have to look at it's the pros and cons and your return on investment. If this doesn't pass, we have to make some very difficult and serious decisions regarding how do we operate a school that is in desperate need of really a lot of things being put into there. How do we accommodate students in a program that the space can't accommodate them? How do we accommodate performances? And we talked about when our representatives were here about educating the whole child, about it's not just test scores, and how do we do some of these performances and even communicating with our students in a performing arts space that has borrowed equipment, that has a stage that's not ADA accessible, that has, you know, all of these other components. We're talking about all of our students. But I really appreciate that was a tough thing to bring up, and I think all of us are glad that you were the one who did it first, because I think one of us was going to have to say it.
The question, it needed to be asked, and the conversation needed to be had. I thought it was excellent, so thank you for doing that.
And I also want to thank you for that, because it is important for the public to see that we discuss things, and it's not one person says something and we're like, oh yeah, okay, we're not bobbleheads, we talk. So thank you for bringing that forward.
I just hope that we really get the energy that I believe we can around this.
Yeah.
Starts with us.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some vocal community members here, and we're going to need really strong information disseminators to work not just with us, but with the community, to people talk about how and why this is important to them, and to their students and to our future.
So if I'm hearing things correctly, it sounds like, yes, we want to put this back on the ballot.
Yes.
The question would be presented as it was last fall. So if that's,
I do have one question about the what. Is this the exact same language, the same exact dollar amount as, is that going to be sufficient given building cost, like just the cost? Like, right, every year, building costs rise a certain percentage. I just want to make sure we're not shooting ourselves in the foot. And this is going to be very unpopular if people are.
It's going to have to.
It's
be.
going to, but it
Have
has,
to be
again,
more
it
is the
has to be
question.
asked, right? Somebody has to ask the question, is this actually a sufficient dollar amount to cover this anymore? Because we did talk about last time, if it doesn't pass, I mean, what did you say the annual?
About 5%.
About 5%. So it's 5% of $16 million is a lot of dollars.
I can contact, Kraus Anderson helped create this budget, and I can contact them and ask them for a update on what we should expect for increase in construction costs.
I think we have to.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
Wrap
want
that
to
up.
say like, whoops, I guess we put it on the levy, but now we can't do it in a per performance space because
good question.
we didn't account for that. And it's going to be a consequence of the last election. That's a real consequence, so.
So then the next question with that information to follow, and I would look to you guys to give maybe some direction as far as the win piece. At what point, I mean, is it, I guess my thinking is once we have those answers and the group is comfortable with that we approve it sooner versus later, so the activities can begin. So is there like anything that prevents us from doing it next meeting or?
I'll call John tonight when I get home.
Okay, short of that dollar amount.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great question, and it is it, how much more, or is it gonna be more, or?
Got your calculator, what's 5% of 16 million?
So that we can at least say that we knew that and made the adjustments accordingly before we put it on there, so. I guess my suggestion would be, and I don't know what's the best way to, well, we have a work session next week, right?
Well, we have
We have
turned that
that
into it.
strategic, yeah,
So
strategic planning.
what I was sitting here thinking is that if we have follow-up information, we may want to put that in the update from Christine, so that you have that. And then with that information, if we could bring it back at the end of this month as an action item, with that information, you can have the discussion again and decide
Sure.
what you want to do.
And in the meantime, if there's questions or concerns, because you'll put it in your update, and I would ask that people reach out to you with any questions that they might have for clarification on that as to what it is. And then again, bring it back with, if there is a new number, and then we can have that discussion. like you
And
said.
we'll let you know, hopefully, we'll be able to let you know either in this superintendent's, well, by the end of the week, in the superintendent's update, what the increase might be.
Kraus Anderson will have probably a much better idea, but Lorian's calculator just said a 5% increase, which, I just want to make sure I wasn't wrong, was $800,000. So that's quite a lot of money. But like Hollis said, the sooner we get this out here.
math.
I did it in my head, but I needed her calculator to actually confirm it because I didn't want to screw up on here. But like Hollis said, I think the sooner we get this information out here, the sooner we can have real conversation with the community. We can answer questions. And so I agree with the not sitting on our hands.
All right, that was good, healthy discussion. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
We comfortable moving
you.
forward?
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys. All right, moving on to action items. First up would be a resolution authorizing Intermediate District 916 to apply for federal you want to just talk about, Brian? That's a long introduction.
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. So before you is the resolution to authorize Intermediate School District 916 to apply for federal E-rate discounts and telecommunications internet equity aid. And again, as I tried to explain at the last meeting efficiently, and I think we got a little bit longer on it, but so we, a federal program for E-rate, so for internet access, we get reimbursement, and that reimbursement is based on a formula, and it's heavily weighted with our free and reduced numbers. And there's dollars that the federal E-rate program doesn't cover. So if we were free and reduced, let's say our formula was, it came out that 80% was covered, and so that was 20% that wasn't covered. So now there's a state program, Telecommunications Equity Aid, that will cover most of or some of those dollars, that extra cost. And we need to be a member of a cluster, a telecommunications cluster, in order to submit for those dollars. And currently, TIES is that for us. And as I explained earlier, TIES will be our internet service provider for one more year. So they will provide this service for us for one more year. Going forward after that, we need to join another cluster. And 916 is forming one because there's many districts that are in the same boat. The West Metro already formed theirs and already has, I think, 5 members to theirs. Today, this evening, it's our recommendation to pass a resolution for the 2019-2020 school year to be part of the telecommunications cluster with Northeast Metro 916.
Okay, get a motion to move that forward, please?
So moved.
Is that Laura? Thank you.
Second.
Laura and Lorian, and then I'll read the resolution. Whereas the federal government has adopted the E-rate program, which provides discounts to schools to assist them obtain affordable telecommunications and internet access. Whereas the state of Minnesota has adopted a telecommunications internet access equity aid program that provides financial assistance to schools to help with costs of maintaining internet access, video connectivity, and related telecommunication services. Whereas access to the state equity aid program must be through a recognized telecommunications access cluster of which a district seeking aid is a member. Whereas the district is a member of Intermediate District 916 and Intermediate District 916 has been recognized as a telecommunications access cluster by the state of Minnesota. Whereas the district wishes to participate in the E-rate program and wishes to obtain the state equity aid by authorizing Intermediate District 916 to apply for both programs on the district's behalf. Now therefore be resolved, Independent School District 13, Intermediate District 916 as a recognized telecommunications access cluster is authorized to apply for federal E-rate discounts on behalf of the district. Intermediate District 916 as a recognized telecommunication access cluster is authorized to apply for state telecommunications internet access equity aid on behalf of the district. And the district administration is authorized and direct to take all actions necessary to implement the terms of the resolution.
Yeah.
Comments, questions? Roll call.
All last time.
Okay.
Roll call. Lewis.
Aye.
Larkin.
Aye.
Severson.
Aye.
Mueller.
Aye.
Plummer.
Aye.
Samurai. Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next up is our health insurance bids.
Superintendent Larkin, members of the board, Chair Larkin, Superintendent Kelly. I don't know if that was a demotion or a promotion. I'm not sure. The health insurance bids for this year are presented to you. This was sent to you in a board update, I believe, about a week and a half ago. But the health insurance was bid out per state statute last spring, and this is just the renewal for the health insurance for this year. As part of the renewal, Blue Cross Blue Shield did put forth a 2-year renewal with a second year at a rate cap not to exceed 12%. The teachers' bargaining unit has signed off on a waiver to delay their HIDA bid for fiscal year until fiscal year 2020. So the renewal summary is as presented, and it's a 3% renewal for next year for the 3 different plans that we offer.
Okay, motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Second.
Paula and Natty. Discussion. Questions?
Is the rate increase for 12% the following year? That's not wildly unexpected.
It's up to 12%, so it can't exceed. And the reason, you may guess, the reason this is structured this way is we've had a abnormal year this year of experience. We've had poor experience in our health insurance pool, where typically Columbia Heights has had very, very good experience. So it was negotiated in the hopes that that last year will just have been a blip on the screen and we'll get back to normal utilization, and then we could have a less than 12% increase.
Anybody else? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Thank you.
Motion
The next item on the agenda is for dental insurance bids. It's the same thing. This was bid out last year in the spring of 2017, and this is the renewal quote. There hasn't been an increase in the dental insurance for, I believe, 5 years. We're self-insured for dental, and we had a nice fund balance that was taking this program along, but this year there is a rate increase recommended, and the insurance committee agreed with the rate increase to go on single dental from $36 a month to $38.50, and on family dental from $83.50 to $94 a month.
Okay, start with a motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Second.
Is that you, Molly?
Yeah.
Lorian and Molly, thank you. Discussion. Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. The
Thank-
Highland boiler bid.
Thank you. Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly, this is an item that was brought to the school board at the last meeting as an informational item. It's to replace boilers at Highland Elementary School. It will eliminate the need to have the steam brought over from the high school over to Highland Elementary. They'll be self-sufficient in their boiler plant. It's going to be paid with capital levy dollars, and the recommendation is to go with the low bid for NAC Mechanical at a cost of $296,500. The bid tabulation and the letter of recommendation is attached on the board motion.
Motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Molly?
Second.
Lorian? Discussion. Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Board topics.
Just a reminder that a community member came and shared that Citizens for Safer Streets are meeting on April 28th at 11:30 to 12:30 at the library, and they do have pizza, so.
That's the public library.
Public library, yes, yeah, good point, the city library on Central.
And I think I probably should have said it when we came out of our communications to the board, but we had 3 different people come and speak tonight about the bond and their support of that, about the bond and their support of that, so. And you mentioned the safer streets, that's all I had. Anybody else have board topics?
I do believe that there's the open house for the 5th graders over at the academy this week on Thursday. Make sure you attend.
Cool. Good.
Get a nice little tour. And they get really excited to see the little ones moving on up in the world, so. Yeah, and of course, we've got a strategic community conversation tomorrow.
Yep, that's tomorrow. I don't know
Yeah,
how
just
quickly
keep
this
talking
stuff
about that.
hits the television where people are seeing it, but yeah, a reminder about our strategic meeting tomorrow night, and then again on the 17th, so.
And the 17th one is here in the Family Center.
Here, and then tomorrow night's the media center, correct? Anybody else? Hearing no other board topics, we'll adjourn the meeting at 9:31.